Um, I'm trying to get more into doing live streams. A couple people were giving me suggestions. There's one guy that is one of my subscribers. He's taken a liking to my union handbook videos, and he wanted me to do he wanted like an in-depth read. But to start off, um, I'm no longer living in Indiana. I'm now living back in Illinois, which is where I'm from. I was born and raised in Illinois. I moved back almost 2 months ago. Um, I live I live in a more nicer area, where the houses are like $500,000. So it's a nice little area for me to live in. Um, to start off, um, here, um, we pulled up minimum wage because Illinois raised their minimum wage. Um, you can see this right here. Minimum wage increases for 2025. We're gonna start off because Illinois raised. Oh shit! Hold on here. Um, we're gonna start off because Illinois raised it. So in 2025, the minimum wage increase was set to raise in 23 different states. In Washington D.C., the increase ranges from 25 cents in Montana and Ohio, which is not a big fucking deal anyway if you think about it, because 25 cents is not that much. In Ohio, and then the minimum wage is going to increase by $2.15 in the state of Michigan. On January 1st, 19 increases are set to take place. One state, Michigan, was set to have two increases, one on January 1st and another one on February 21st of this year. Now, increases in two different states, Alaska and Oregon and Washington, D.C., they were set to take effect on July 1st of 2025, and one was set to take effect on Florida on September 30th of this year. Now, going into 2025, 20 states used the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, which ain't nothing because nobody could survive off that. But 30 states provided for state minimum wages above the federal minimum wage. Now, after 2025 increases, minimum wages were set to be the highest in Washington, D.C., with an increase above its 2024 rates of $17.50 an hour to be announced in July of 2025. Now, last year, in 2024, the minimum wage in Washington, D.C. went from $16.28 to $16.66, but now it's going to $17.50 an hour. Last year, California had a minimum wage of $16 an hour, and then it's going to go up by 50 cents. It's going to go up to $16.50 this year. Minimum wages were set to be the lowest in Georgia and Wyoming, where the state's where $5.15 minimum wages are superseded by the federal government of $7.25 an hour per requirement. The largest increase was in Michigan, which was set to have an increase of $2.15 from 2024 rate of $10.33 an hour after an increase of $10.56 on January 1st, and it's going to go up to $12.48 on February 20th. You guys can also jump in, leave comments, let me know what you guys are thinking here about this. Some wages were increased by an average of 75 cents per hour. The average state minimum wage, including DC in 2025, was set to be $11.18 an hour from $10.69 in 2024. Now, from 1996 to 2024, there were 32 ballot measures to increase state minimum wages, and voters approved 28%, which was voters approved 28, which is and there were so 88% of the people had voted to approve the minimum wage, and 12 rejected it. Those 12 being Republicans. In 2024, California and Massachusetts became the first states to reject a minimum wage increase ballot measure since 1996. The other two defeated measures on the ballot in 1996 were Missouri and Montana, and New York and Oregon divided the states into different regions with different minimum wage rates. The top 5 states who will have the highest minimum wage will be Washington, D.C. with $17.50 an hour, The regular state Washington with 1666, California at 1650, Connecticut with 1635 an hour, and New York at 1550 an hour. Um, um, the lowest minimum wages based on state laws were $5.15 in Georgia and Wyoming, which were lower than the federal government's requirement. When the state rate is lower than the federal rate, the federal minimum wage of $7.25 supersedes state law for most types of employees. Now, 20 different states use the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Um, Now this here, let's pull this up here. Now if you're looking at this little map here, um, 30, okay, so 30 states that are highlighted in blue here had minimum wages above the federal law. Now states with the darker shade of blue have a higher minimum wage increase. So you can see that there. Now, so the 19 states that are raising their minimum wage is Arizona. Arizona's minimum wage increases from $14.35 to $14.70. That began on January 1st of this year. They approved this back in 2016, which with the voters approved Proposition 206, which was designed to increase the minimum wage each year until reaching $12 in 2020 and index the wage to inflation beginning in 2021. Now California's minimum wage increased from $16 an hour to $16.50 on January 1st of 2025. In 2015, the California state legislature passed the Senate Bill 3 as a compromise with the labor union behind a citizen-initiated measure that would have increased the minimum wage faster. SB 3 was set to increase the minimum wage each year until reaching $15 an hour in 2022, and it would tie the minimum wage to inflation thereafter, and the wage increased to $16 an hour in 2024. Colorado's minimum wage increased from $14.42 an hour to $14.81 on January 1st of 2025. Amendment 70, which was approved by voters in 2016, was designed to increase the state's minimum wage to $12 an hour by January 1st, 2020, and to index it to the CPI thereafter. Connecticut, the minimum wage in Connecticut was set to increase from $15.69 an hour to $16.35 an hour, starting on January 1st of 2025 as a result of the state's second inflation adjustment following the passage of Act 19.4 in 2019. Now in Delaware, the wage was set to increase from $13.25 an hour to $15 an hour on January 1st of 2025. On July 19th of 2021, Delaware Governor John Carney signed the Senate Bill 15 into law. The bill increased the state's minimum wage from $11.25 an hour to $13.25 on January 1st of 2023, and then the bill was designed to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour starting on January 1st of 2025. Illinois, which is the state where I'm living at now, Illinois' minimum wage increased from $14 an hour to $15 on January 1st of 2025 based on the legislation that was passed back in 2019. Maine's minimum wage increased from $14.15 an hour, from $14.15 an hour to $14.65 an hour, started on January 1st of 2025. Question 4 was designed to increase the minimum wage until reaching $12 an hour in 2020 and index the wage to inflation beginning in 2021. Michigan's minimum wage increased from $10.33 an hour to $10.56 an hour starting on January 1st of 2025 and was set to increase again in $12 an hour beginning on February 21st of 2025. Under the Senate Bill 1171 of 2018, and then the current general minimum wage of $9.25 an hour was set to increase to $9.45 began back on January 1st, 2019, and then increased by a prescribed amount every following year until January 1st until reaching $12 an hour and beginning on January 1st of 2030. And there were no further increases after the wage of $12.05, which they're going to need to up that because $12 an hour even is not a lot in this time of day and age. In Minnesota, uh, Minnesota's minimum wage increased from $10.85 an hour to $11.13 per hour. It was passed in 2014. The state's law increased the minimum wage to $9.50 an hour in 2017, and indexed increases to annual changes in inflation after that. Missouri's minimum wage increased from $12.30 an hour to $13.75 an hour on January 1st of 2025. Voters in Missouri approved Proposition B on November 5th of 2024, which was designed to increase the minimum wage on January 1st of 2025 to $13.75 an hour. That was a $1.45. It's gonna if they improve it next year, it's gonna be up to 15 an hour. Because right now they jumped it to $13.75, and it was gonna be, and then it will be another $1.25 raise by next year in 2026 for Missouri, where they will have a $15 an hour minimum wage by then. Montana's minimum wage was increased from $10.30 an hour to $10.55 on January 1st of 2025. Big fucking deal because 25 cents is not a lot. In 2006, voters approved Initiative 151, which increased the minimum wage from $6.15 an hour in 2007, and they indexed the minimum wage increase to beginning in 2008. Back in 2008, basically. Nebraska Initiative 433, approved by voters in 2022, was designed to increase the minimum wage to $10.50 an hour on January 1st of 2023 until reaching $15 an hour by 2026. The wage was set to increase to $12 in 2024, and $13.50. It got raised to $13.50 in 2025. So by 2026, it will be raised up to another $1.50, where it would stop at 15 an hour. New Jersey's minimum wage increased from $15.13 an hour to $15.49 an hour, which started on January 1st of 2025 and February of 2019. New Jersey passed a bill A15 that raised the state minimum wage to $15 an hour, but which happened back in 2024. In the state of New York, on January 1st of 2025, the minimum wage was set to increase to $16.15 per hour. $16.50 per hour in New York, like Westchester and Long Island areas, and to $15.50 per hour for the rest of the state. Now, to read more about New York's regional minimum wages, you can see the regional minimum wages in a certain section. In the state of Ohio, Ohio's minimum wage increased from $10.45 an hour to $10.70 an hour. That's 25-cent raise. Big fucking deal. That's not a lot. In 2006, voters approved the Amendment 2, which increased the minimum wage to $6.85 in 2007, and it indexed the minimum wage to inflation beginning back in 2008. Rhode Island. Rhode Island's minimum wage increased from $14 an hour to $15 an hour. Now, Rhode Island's minimum wage increased from $14 an hour to $15 an hour. Shalom to Dominator. Yes, I am Jewish. So Rhode Island's minimum wage increased from $14 an hour to $15 an hour on January 1st of 2024. And then on May 20th of 2021, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee signed a bill into law that was designed to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That happened on January 1st of this year. South Dakota's minimum wage increased from $11.20 an hour to $11.50 an hour, but that's only like a 30-cent increase. That's not a lot either. In 2014, voters approved Measure 18, which increased the minimum wage to $8.50 an hour in 2015, and then indexed the minimum wage to inflation beginning back in 2016. Now, in the state of Vermont, Vermont was set to increase their minimum wage on January 1st of 2025. They raised it from $12 an hour to $12.41 an hour after a reenactment of the state's minimum wage during a reenactment of the state's minimum wage act during the 2020 legislative session. In the state of Washington, Initiative 1433 approved by voters in 2016. It was designed to increase the state's minimum wage to $13.50 per hour by January 1st of 2020, and they wanted to index the minimum wage to the CPI every year after Initiative 1433 increased the state's minimum wage from 14.49 an hour to 15.74 an hour. On January 1st of 2023, the wage was set to increase to 16.66 by this year. Some states are not going to raise it right away. Some states are going to raise it on July 1st. So on July 1st, you're going to have Alaska raising their minimum wage. Alaska in 2024, voters had passed ballot measure 1, which was designed to raise the minimum wage to $13 an hour on July 1st of 2025, $14 an hour on July 1st of 2026, and then by July 1st of 2027, they will have a $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, after this, the minimum wage would be adjusted annually for inflation, but the adjustment would be calculated each September 30th by the Alaska Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Now, for the preceding calendar year, and by using the 100% rate of inflation based on the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers for the Anchorage metropolitan area, and it's compiled by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the United States Department of Labor, the adjusted minimum wage would be rounded up to the nearest 10 cents, but the adjusted minimum hourly wage would apply to work performed for the next calendar year when it would be effective. With Oregon on July 1st of 2023, the standard minimum wage increased in Oregon from $13.50 an hour to $14.20 an hour. And that began on July 1st of 2024. The wage was set to increase based on changes to the Consumer Price Index. Now, the wage for the Portland Metro was set to increase to $1.25 over the standard wage, while the non-urban counties the wage for Portland Metro was set to increase to $1.25 for the standard wage, while the non-urban counties were set to be a dollar less than the standard wage. Now passed in 2016, the legislation for the state's minimum wage had divided the state into 3 regions, which would get different rate increases. The minimum wage will increase in the 15 counties that are classified as a standard based on changes to the Consumer Price Index, which must be calculated by April 30th of 2025. To read more about Oregon's regional minimum wages, see the regional minimum wage section, which you can find in the bottom section here somewhere. Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., the minimum wage was set to increase on July 1st of 2025 based on the changes to the Consumer Price Index within the Washington metropolitan area. Now, some states are going to raise their minimum wage, like Florida, which they're going to raise that on September 30th. Now with Florida's minimum wage will increase from $13 an hour to $14 an hour. On November 3rd of 2020, voters had approved Amendment 2 by a vote of 61% to 39%. The initiative was designed to increase the state's minimum wage, which was $8.56 in 2020, but they're going to raise it to $15 an hour by 2026. There are some states that have a regional minimum wage. Yeah, because you got different regional minimum wages, which I don't know what the regional is. Usually in certain areas, sometimes minimum wage is based on your location. If you're living in like a city, the city might provide more money than a countryside, because country towns are kind of poor. But that's all for the minimum wage here. Let's get into the union handbook for UPS. I'm pretty sure that one of my subscribers will be watching this video. Last week we left off. Here, hold on. I think my last video for the union handbook was breaking down Article 5 and 6. Let's see here to make sure. Yeah, Article 5 and 6. Or actually, well, I think I titled it 5 and 6, but let me see. I don't think I got through the whole Well, for the people that have not watched the videos for UPS, we can no, this is the union handbook. It's not a big book. Every 5 years, you if you're a a job that has a union handbook, that every 5 years they will renew the contract, give raises out based on the contract of the book, based on the contract that the union members sign. They will determine what your raises are going to be and what you're going to get every year in raises. Um, it also gives a breakdown of everything in here. Um, the book is only like 100 and something pages, um, and I thought the union handbooks were bigger, but this is but they're not that big. They're small. Um, so I know that there was one guy that watches my videos who's been wanting an in-depth reading. Um, now, Article 1 basically breaks down the collective bargaining agreement with the book. Um, so so the agreement has been negotiated through the process of collective bargaining and is entered into and by between the parties in a mutual effort to stabilize employment conditions and to promote solid labor and management relations. Um, any reference to gender appearing in this agreement shall mean all gender, including gender nonconforming. Article 1 are parties to the agreement. The employer and the union Teamsters are affiliated with Local 705. Basically, UPS, the UPS I work for is Local 705. That's the union. And it's an affiliate of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, hereinafter referred to as Union or Local 705. They adopted this article and entered into this agreement with the mutual interest of preserving and protecting work and job opportunities for the employers covered by this agreement. But no bargaining unit work shall be subcontracted, transferred, leased, assigned, or conveyed except as provided in this agreement. Um, Section 1, Section 1, Section 1.1, operations covered. The execution of this agreement and on the part of the employer shall cover all employees of the employer in this bargaining unit and any existing centers, new air hubs and gateway operations, new buildings, and any other new operations of the employer within the jurisdiction of the union signatory to this agreement as determined or may be determined by the international may be determined by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters with regard to wages, hours, and other conditions of employment. Section 1.2 employees covered. The employees covered by this agreement shall be construed to mean where already recognized feeder drivers, package drivers, sorters, loaders, unloaders, porters, office clerical clerks, general utility, maintenance personnel, building maintenance, car washers, United Parcel Service employees, and the employer's air operations, in-house package clerk, air administrative assistant, administrative assistant clerk, hub associates, dispatch associates, hub administrative assistants, yard control associate, feeder associate, tower clerks, and to the extent allowed by law, employees in the export and import operations performing loading and unloading duties, and other employees of the employer for whom the union is or may become the bargaining representative. Now, in addition, the employer recognized as bargaining unit member clerks who were assigned to package center operations, hub center operations, and are the so in addition, the employer recognized as bargaining unit members clerks who were assigned to package center operations, hub center operations, and our air hub operations whose assignment involves the handling and processing and the progression of merchandise after it has been tendered to the United Parcel Service to effectuate delivery. These jobs cover package return clerks and bed address clerks, post card room clerks, damage clerks, rewrap clerks, and hub and air hub return clerks. Additionally, the employer recognizes as bargaining unit members FDC or ODC clerks, the international auditors, smart label clerks, revenue auditors, the customer counter clerks, and hazardous material auditors who work in the operations facility. Now, Section 1.3, transfer of company title or interest. Now, this agreement shall be binding upon the parties hereto, their successors, administrators, executors, and assignments in the event an entire operation or portion thereof, or rights only, they are sold, leased, transferred, or taken over by sale, transfer, lease, assignment, receivership, or bankruptcy proceedings. Such operations or use of such rights shall continue to be subject to the terms and conditions of this agreement, and for the life thereof. On the sale, transfer, or lease of an individual run or runs of rights only, the specific provisions of this agreement shall prevail. It is understood by this section that the parties hereto should not sell, lease, or transfer such run or runs or rights to a third party or to evade this agreement. In the event that the employer fails to require the purchaser, the transferee or lessee, or to agree to assume the obligation of this agreement. Now, the employer, including partners thereof, shall be liable to the union, and the employee is covered for all damages, including but not limited to monetary damages sustained as a result of such failure to require assumption of the terms of this agreement until its expiration date, but shall not be liable after the purchaser, the transferee, or lessee has agreed to assume the obligations of this agreement. Now, the employer shall give notice of the existence of this agreement to any purchaser, transferee, lessee, assignee, etc. of this operation covered by this agreement, or any part thereof, including rights only. Such notice shall be in writing with a copy to the union as the time the seller, transferor, or lessor executes a contract or transaction as herein described. Now, the union should also be advised of the exact nature of the transaction, and not including financial details. Section 1.4. The employer agrees that it shall be in violation of this section if it, any affiliate, or any other entity under its control enters into a business so as to duplicate the employer's common carrier operations as defined in Article 1 in any area. Affiliate, for purposes of this section, means any entity which is owned, managed, or controlled by the employer or its parent. The section shall cover any entity of the employer or its parent maintains the ultimate right to control or approve a decision by such entity. The employer shall be financially responsible for all losses resulting from a violation of this section. Now we go into Article 2, the scope of the agreement. Section 2.1, single bargaining unit. All employees covered by this agreement shall constitute one bargaining unit. To the extent provided by law, this agreement shall be applied to all subsequent additions to and extensions of current common carrier operations of the employer and newly established operations of the employer, which are utilized as a part of such current operations of the employer, without additional evidence of union representation of the employers involved. It provides that no, they update it. See, I'm glad you commented. I know you said you wanted the full in-depth blow-by-blow book. Like I said, it is 176 pages. That means the union handbook will go on for a few hours at most if I decide to do the live stream that long. Every year they update certain things, so I don't know what it was back then with Jimmy Hoffa, but that is a good question. I guess I could research that later on for my next video for next week. So getting back to the last part of Article 2, it's provided that newly acquired operations of the employers which are not utilized as part of the such current common carrier operation of the employer should not be deemed additions to or extension of operations of the employer. Now, if the employer purchases a related common carrier business, that employer recognizes Teamsters Local 705 as the bargaining representative and shall meet to negotiate proper terms to be included in that new bargaining agreement. Now we're getting into Section 3, Article 1. Section 3, Article 1, the employer recognizes and acknowledges that the union to the exclusive representative of all employers of the employer is in covered classifications. The employees and union covered under this agreement shall constitute one bargaining unit. Now B, when the employer needs additional employees, it shall give the union equal opportunity with all other sources to provide suitable applicants, but the employer shall not be required to hire those referred by the union. Now, if any employees are hired through an employment agency, the employer shall pay the employment agency fee, if any, due from the employee. Now, however, if the union has been given equal opportunity to furnish employees as provided herein, and if the employer is retained through the probationary period, this fee shall not be paid until the 31st day of employment. Um, Section 3. Now, Section 3. Section 3, Article 2, Union Shop and Dues. All present employees who are members of the union on the effective date of this agreement, which or whatever is okay. I'm sorry, I misread that one wrong. Sorry, spacing out here. All the present employees who are members of the union on this effective date of this subsection, or on this date of execution of this agreement, whichever is the latter, shall remain members of the union in good standing as a condition of employment. In order to assist the union in maintaining current and accurate membership records, the employer shall furnish the union a list of new employees. Now, the employer agrees to notify the union to when a new employee is added to the seniority list. This notification shall be made in conjunction with the employee listing. For me, I've only been at UPS for 5 months. Don't have a lot of seniority yet, but I will get some the longer I stay. But I will get seniority the longer I stay. Now, the list shall include the name, address, social security number, date of hire, hub or center to which assigned, shift, and classification of position hired into. Now, the list shall be provided on a monthly basis. All present employees who are not members of the union, and all employees who are hired hereafter, shall become and remain members in good standing of the union as a condition of employment. And so basically with UPS, you will become a member of the union if you reach your 30-day mark. After you reach 30 days, you're considered a member of the union. So basically on and after the 31st day following the beginning of their employment, or on or after the 31st day following the effective date of this agreement. Now, an employee who has failed to acquire or thereafter maintain membership in the union as herein provided shall be terminated within 72 hours after the employer has received written notice from an authorized representative of the union. Now, certifying that membership has been and is continuing to be offered to such employees on the same basis and as other members, and further, that the employee has had notice and opportunity to make all dues or initiation fee payments. Nothing in this section prohibits an employee from exercising the right to file an objection to paying fees not attributed to representative activities as memorialized in the Supreme Court's decision in CWA v. Beck, which I gotta look that one up too, 487 U.S. 735, which happened in 1988. But these objectors will be known as fair share fee payers. Now, all language in Section 3.2 and Section 3 Article 2 and Section 3 Article 3 shall apply to the fair share fee payers. But no provision of Section 3.2a of this article shall apply to the extent that it may be prohibited by state law. Section 3 Article 3, Dues Checkoff and Joint Dues Committee. The union and the employer shall establish a joint dues committee to review the deduction and remittance of union dues. This committee is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that dues are accurately deducted and remitted in a timely manner to the union. It is anticipated that this committee shall serve as a source of continuing study regarding the most efficient, accurate, and expeditious deduction and payments of dues, including exploring electronic solutions. Now breaking down the union fees and the union dues, I'm a new hire. I'm fairly newer with UPS. Like I said, I've only been there 5 months. They take out $30 out of my check every week for union fees. The longer you stay with the union, the longer you stay with the union, the more they're gonna take out. And that's just what sucks about it. Now, exploring electronic solutions, the union and the employer shall establish procedures for the operation of this committee. Now, the employer agrees to deduct from the pay of all employees covered by this agreement, the initiation fees, dues, and our uniform assessment of the union. The employer shall be under an obligation to pay dues from the first day of employment unless prohibited by law. However, initiation fees and our assessment shall begin with the pay period following seniority. Now, Dues in the amount designed by the union shall be deducted from the first paycheck of new employees and then from subsequent paychecks in accordance with the specified weekly amount. The union shall provide the employer a weekly amount to be deducted from each employee. The union shall individually specify the weekly amount to be deducted for initiation fees, union dues, and assessments. For initiation fees and assessments, the union shall notify the employer the number of weeks these deductions are to be taken from the employee. Now, notification of deductions to be made by the employer for the benefit of the union must be received at least 1 month prior to the date that the deduction is to be made. The obligation of the union is to provide this information, and it shall be satisfied by the transmission of a computer file in a mutually agreeable format. The employer shall deduct the weekly dues from each vacation week. Now, this will be implemented with 6 months of ratification of this agreement. Every year, so like when it says vacation week, with UPS you get a week vacation every year. Every year you get like 1 week vacation. You also have an option week, which could become your second week of vacation if you decide not to take it. For me, I'm gonna have 2 weeks vacation for this year, starting in October, because I chose not to take my vacation week and I decided to use it as a second vacation in the year. So I could do that. The employer shall provide a remittance to the union within 15 days following the check date the deduction was taken. With each remittance, the employer shall submit a report by center and sort listing all employees alphabetically with their social security number and job classification. For those employees who had no deduction for the week, the employer shall provide a reason. In the event that the union does not want to receive a weekly remittance, the employer shall provide a monthly remittance by the 15th day of the following month. However, if this option is chosen, the employer shall still each week make weekly deductions as described above. The employer shall provide a list of peak season employees to the union. Peak season for UPS is October, November, and December, and November. So like October, November, December, and January. Those are usually like the peak seasons for UPS or any truck or any company that does like loading and unloading. Now the employer shall provide a list of peak season employees to the union. The company agrees to honor the dues checkoff cards for peak season, for the peak season employees. Now, where the law requires written authorization by the employee, the same is to be furnished in the form required. Following ratification of this agreement, the Joint Dues Committee will meet to adopt a standard electronic membership and dues checkoff. And the Joint Dues Committee will meet to adopt a standard electronic membership and dues checkoff form approved by the union that will be included as part of the company's application and notification process. Now, the Joint Dues Committee will also meet to adopt an acceptable digital platform and methods for the collection, storage, and distribution of the electronic membership and dues checkoff forms. Electronic membership and dues checkoff forms can only be implemented upon agreement of the Joint Dues Committee, but no deduction shall be made, which is prohibited by applicable law. The union shall have the option of monthly deductions with monthly remittance on or before the 15th day of the same month. One written request of the employee payroll deduction shall be made to purchase U.S. savings bonds for the said employee. Now, the employer agrees to deduct from the paycheck of all employees covered by this agreement voluntary contributions to Drive. The Drive shall notify the employer of the amounts designed or designated by each contributing employee that are deducted from their paycheck on a weekly basis for all weeks worked. The phrase weeks worked excludes any work other than a week in which the employer earned a wage. Now, the employer shall transmit to Drive national headquarters on a monthly basis in one check the total amount deducted along with the name of each employee on whose behalf a deduction is made. Now, the employee's social security number and the amount deducted from that employee's paycheck. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters shall reimburse the employer annually for the employer's actual cost for the expenses incurred in administering the weekly payroll deduction deduction plan, basically. Now, also with UPS, they don't have a dress code policy. Basically, you don't have to wear like a suit or like fancy ties or anything like most jobs. you can come as you are. So like this shirt is acceptable. Um, if you look at the shirt, this is acceptable if you have a sweater over it, because then they can't really read what it says. Um, Now, if you're wondering what the shirt says, it says dildo with a deer in it, and the deer is dressed in a pickle. It says dildo. Um, so this will be acceptable under one circumstance. You have to have a sweater over it covering the saying. Now, the employer agrees to deduct certain specific amounts each week from the wages of those employees who shall have given the employer written notice to make such deductions. The employer shall remit amounts deducted to the applicable credit union once each week. The amount so deducted shall be remitted to the applicable credit union once each month or weekly. The employer shall not make deductions and shall not be responsible for remittance to the credit union. Now, for any deductions for those weeks during which the employer's earnings shall be less than the amount authorized for deductions, in the event the employee has determined to be in violation of this article by decision in the grievance procedure, and if such employer subsequently is in violation thereof after receipt of 72 hours written notice of specific delinquencies, the union may strike to enforce this article. Now, however, such strike shall be terminated upon the delivery thereof. Errors or inadvertent admissions relating to individual employees shall not constitute a violation. Section 3, Article 4, Work Assignments. Every employer has their own work assignments. I'm a loader and unloader, so my job is to load and unload load and unload trucks every day. Um, Now the employer agrees to respect the jurisdictional rules of the union and accept as otherwise provided in this agreement. It shall not direct or require their employees are persons thereof, or other than the employees in the bargaining units here involved, to perform work which is recognized as the work of the employees in said units. Now this is not to interfere with bona fide agreements with the bona fide unions. Section 3, Article 5. Employers and the employees shall have the option of participating in the employer's electronic funds transfer. Now, for me, I get direct deposit. So they have three options for payroll at UPS. You got direct deposit, you got a pay card, or a paycheck, or like a weekly paycheck that they hand to you every Friday. So you got your direct deposit, the employees check pay card system, or a paper payroll check system. If you get direct deposit, you get it. If you get direct deposit at UPS, you get your paycheck every Thursday. If you get a paper paycheck, then you get that every Friday. Now, new employees shall make this election during orientation, recognizing the mutual benefits and advantages of these systems. Over a paper payroll check, the union agrees to encourage all employees to select either the EFT or a check card as a method of payment, and not to go with the paper paycheck. Section 3, Article 6, Supervisors working. Now to start off with this, now there are supervisors at UPS. Supervisors are like your boss. Supervisors, once a person becomes a supervisor, they're not allowed to be in the union, they're not allowed to have a union handbook, and they're not allowed to participate in any union meetings. Now the employer agrees that the function of supervisors is to supervise the employees and not the performance of the work of the employers that they are supervising. Accordingly, the employer agrees that supervisors or other employees of the employer who are not members of the bargaining unit should not perform any bargaining unit work except to train employees or demonstrate safety. Now, the employer shall make every reasonable effort to maintain a sufficient workforce to its staff and its operations with bargaining unit employees. Now, the employer also agrees that supervisors or other employees of the employer who are not members of the bargaining unit shall not perform the bargaining unit work in preparing the work areas before the start of the employer's hub, preload, or reloading operation. Nor shall the employer send any bargaining unit employee home and then have such employees' work performed by a supervisor or other employees of the employer who are not members of the bargaining unit. Like I said, the supervisors are not members of the bargaining unit, but when and then with B, and B, when additional employees are necessary to complete the employer's operation on any shift or within any classification, the employer shall first use bargaining unit employees, including double shift early call-in, including but not limited to the early call-in of drivers and overtime. The following shall apply with regard to inside work with each. So this is breakdown C. The following shall apply with regard to inside work within each building. Each operation shall maintain separate list by seniority of those part-time employees and those that are full-time who are interested in performing extra work. There is a sign-up sheet that's usually, but usually at UPS there's a sign-up sheet for full-time and part-time employees who want to sign up for additional work. Um, it shall be the employer's responsibility to sign up on the appropriate list. The company shall post such list, and employees who are interested in adding their names to the list shall do so on the last week of each month. It shall be the employer's responsibility to make sure that their contact information is up to date and correct. The employees who are unavailable to work on 3 separate occasions within a calendar month shall have their names removed from the coverage list. Now, those employees shall be eligible to resign on the list for the following month. Now, oh, shit. We're gonna take a quick bathroom break here, but the video will still play. I'll be back in about a minute to go use the bathroom, and I'll be back. Um, Okay, that is better. Okay. Um, Now, for the following month, when extra work is available, or when there is a special sort or weekend or holiday, the company shall use the Article 22.3 full-time list to fill the required positions by seniority, and then, if necessary, they can use the part-time employees, and such employees shall work as assigned. Now, full-time employees shall be paid for hours worked only. The employee must be qualified for the available work, and double-shift employees shall have seniority among themselves. Full-time employees called in from the list must be capable of covering their normal scheduled work, but no employee is allowed to work more than 2 shifts in any 24-hour period. All extra work offered shall be reviewed within the union by the union steward. Now, during peak season, Article 22.3 the 22.3 employees may sign up on the peak posting for extra work occurring after the completion of their bid job. Now, if it is determined at any step of the grievance and or arbitration process procedure, basically, that the section or supervisor working provision in this agreement has been violated, the aggrieved employee shall be paid as follows. Basically, if you don't agree with something, you can file a grievance, and they can pay you and now, even if you've got shorted on hours, a grievance will pay you for a certain amount of hours. Now, if the actual hours worked by the supervisor amounts to 2 hours or less, the aggrieved employee shall be paid for the actual hours worked by the supervisor at the rate of double time the employee's rate to pay at the time of the incident. Or, if the supervisor works more than 2 hours, the aggrieved employee shall be paid for 4 hours of straight time, or actual hours worked at a double time the employer's rate of pay at the time of the incident, whichever is greater. If no aggrieved employee can be identified, the payment shall be made to the aggrievant. Now, with UPS, depending on if you're part-time or full-time, part-time employees, if you work more than 5 hours in a given day, anything more than 5 hours is considered time and a half for a part-time employee. Anything over 8 for a full-time. If you work more than 8 hours on a full-time shift, then you get time and a half. If you come in on Saturday, that's also time and a half again. and then if you work on Sunday, it's double time, um, double time to pay. Now, such remedies shall be in addition to any other remedies that are sought by the union in the appropriate grievance procedure. Now, in the event that any individual supervisor is found to be in violation of the first paragraph of the subsection 3, um, times in any 9-month rolling period, the grievance shall be paid at a quadruple time the employer's rate of pay for the hours specified in the first paragraph of this subsection. Um, Now, quadruple pay for me because I'm actually one of the because I'm still fairly newer with UPS. A lot so the newer hires are getting hired in at like 20 something an hour. If I was to get quadruple the pay, then I'd be getting close to $100 an hour. If I was getting quadruple the pay, um, now Article 4. This is centered on union stewards. The employer recognizes the right of the union to designate job stewards and alternates from the employer's seniority list. Now, the authority of job stewards and alternates that are so designated by the union shall be limited to and shall not exceed the following duties and activities: the investigation and presentation of grievances within the employer or the designated company representative in accordance with the provisions of the collective bargaining agreement, the collection of dues when authorized by appropriate union action, and the transmission of such messages and information shall originate with and are authorized by the union or its officers. It's provided such message and information, and they have been reduced to writing, or if not reduced to writing, or sorry, I gotta get some of the drink here. There we go. Okay, that's better. If they're not reduced to a writing or of a routine nature, and they do not involve work stoppages, slowdowns, refusal to handle goods, or any other other interference with the employer's business. Job stewards and alternates have no authority to take strike action or any other action interrupting the employer's business except as authorized by official action of the union. The employer recognizes these limitations upon the authorized job stewards and other alternates, and they should not hold the union liable for any unauthorized acts. The employer is so recognizing such limitations shall have the authority to impose the proper non-discriminatory discipline, including discharge. However, in the event that the job steward or the designated alternate has led or instigated or encouraged unauthorized strike action, slowdown, or work stoppages in violation of this agreement, they may be signaled out for more serious discipline, up to and including discharge. Stewards and alternate stewards shall not be subjected to discipline or performing any of these duties within the scope of their authority as defined in the section, in the manner permitted by the section. Also, I do want to say this, just to stop reading from the union handbook for a minute. Now, UPS has buses that pick people up and take them to work and drop them back off to where they need to be at. For me, I take a bus to and from work. I don't know how to drive, don't have a car, don't have a license, so I take a bus that gets me to and from work. But if you work for UPS in Illinois, taking the bus to UPS and then if you get picked up from UPS and go back to your to where you gotta go, it's free of charge. Now most bus rides are $2. Are $2 to go to where you gotta go. Now, for me, I don't take a bus. I don't take the bus to like any other place other than to UPS and back. So the bus. So instead of doing Uber and Lyft, the bus saves me money. Uber and Lyft does not. Now, recognizing the importance of the role of the union steward in resolving problems or any disputes between the employer and its employees, the employer reaffirms its commitment to the active involvement of union stewards in such processes in accordance with the terms of this article. The job steward or the designated alternate shall be permitted reasonable time to investigate, present, and process grievances on the company's property without interruption of the employer's operation. Upon notification to their supervisor, a steward shall be afforded the right to leave their work area for a reasonable period of time to investigate, present, and process any grievances and to represent a fellow employee concerning grievances or discipline, so long as such activity does not interrupt the employer's operation. The employer shall make a reasonable effort to ensure that its operations are not interrupted by the stewards engaging in such activity, but the employer should not use interruption of its operation as a subterfuge for denying such right to the steward. Now, where mutually agreed to by the union and employer, stewards may investigate off the property or other than during their regular schedule without loss of time or pay. Stewards shall be paid for time spent in meetings under the article, which occur during the steward's regular working hours. Stewards shall also be paid for time spent in meetings which occur outside their working hours, and or on their days off by mutual consent. Such time spent during the job stewards or the designated alternate regular working schedule shall be considered working hours and computing daily and are weekly overtime within the regular schedule of the job steward and the designated alternate. Now, the employer recognizes the employee's right to be given requested representation by a steward or the designated alternate at such time as the employee reasonably contemplates disciplinary action. The employer also recognizes the steward's right to be given and requested representation by another steward or the designated alternate at such time as the steward reasonably contemplates disciplinary action. Also, I want to say this. Now, if you work for UPS and UPS decides to write you up, tell them that you're not going to sign the write-up until a union member is present. And if they say that a union member isn't present, tell them that you're not signing it until they find one. Now, when requested by the union or the employee, there should be a steward present whenever the employee meets with an employer concerning grievances or disciplinary action or investigatory interviews. Now, in any such case, the meeting shall not be continued until the steward or alternate steward is present at that time. Like I said, that's how you get them. And once you study this handbook, it becomes like your weapon. Not but in a good way, anyway. If an employer does not wish to have a union steward present in any meeting where the employee has a right to a union representation under this article, the employee shall sign a waiver of union representation, a copy of which shall be furnished to the union upon its request. If requested by the union, the designated steward shall be provided with copies of all warning, suspension, and discharge letters. Now, job stewards or designated alternates shall be allowed to wear an identifying steward's badge provided by the union. If you become a union steward, they give you a badge, and you gotta wear it at all times so they know that's what you are. So the job stewards or designated alternates shall be allowed to wear an identifying steward's badge provided by the union at all times while they are on the employer's premise. Article 5, sanitary conditions. The employer agrees to maintain a clean sanitary washroom or break room, having hot and cold running water with toilet facilities in all present and future buildings. Now, the employer further agrees to provide separate toilet and changing facilities for the male and female employees in all present and future UPS buildings, which have more than 15 drivers. The employer agrees to provide a designated area outside the general work area to be used for breaks in all present and future buildings. The employer shall implement procedures designated to ensure privacy for all employees when using facilities in UPS buildings with 15 or more drivers. Such toilet facilities shall be equipped with proper ventilation devices and shall be heated as climatic conditions shall warrant. Now, also with the breaks, if you're a part-time employee, your break is 10 minutes because you're only working like 4 hours. If you worked 5 or 6, then you would get a 20-minute break. So if you work less than 5, then you get a 10-minute break. But if you're a full-time employee and you work 8 or more hours, then you get a 1-hour break. Now, the employer agrees to provide lockers for those employees who are required to change into a uniform or to take a lunch period. All other employees shall be provided a suitable area for keeping personal items and clothes. They do have lockers. Assigned lockers shall not be opened by the employer unless either the employee or union representative is present. Now, where the employer and the union agree that the local water is not suitable for drinking, the employer shall provide bottled drinking water. Um, in those locations where the company uses temporary structures for hub preload operations, the company shall have heat, adequate light, and provide loading heights equal to the equipment being loaded. Um, Now, getting to last week, we left off on Article 6, extra contract agreements. Um, Section 6, Article 1 of the extra contract agreement. The employer agrees not to enter into or to enter into any agreement or contract with its employees, either individually or collectively, or to require or attempt to require employees to sign any document, either individually or collectively, which in any way conflicts with the provisions of this agreement. Now, any such agreement or document shall be null and void. Any such agreement or document may not be placed in an employee's file or used by the employer as a basis for discipline, or used in connection with any discipline proceeding. Nor may any such agreement or document, nor the contents thereof, be divulged to any person or entity. In addition, an employee's refusal to sign a company form relating to the principle of a fair day's work shall not be used for disciplinary purposes unless the signing is required by law or by this agreement. Section 2 of Section 6, Article 2, work week reduction. If either the Fair Labor Standards Act or the DOT hours of service regulations are subsequently amended to as a result in substantial penalties, either the employees or the employer, a written notice shall be sent by either party requesting negotiations to attend or to amend those meetings and those provisions which are affected. Now, therefore, the parties shall enter into the immediate negotiations for the purpose of arriving at a mutually satisfactory solution. In the event the parties cannot agree on a solution within 60 days, or mutually agreed extensions thereof after receipt of the stated written notice, either party shall be allowed economic recourse. Now, Section 6, Article 3, where the new types of equipment and or operations for which rates of pay are not established by this agreement, they are put into use after the ratification date of this agreement within the operations covered by this agreement. Rates governing such operations shall be subjected to negotiations between the party. This paragraph shall apply to all new employees of equipment, including office and clerical equipment. In the event the agreement cannot be reached within 60 days after the date such equipment is put into use, either the union or the employer shall submit the matter to be expedited to the arbitration pursuant to Article 8. We haven't gotten to Article 8 yet, but that one continues into Article 8. Section 6, Article 4, technological change. Technological change shall be defined as any meaningful change in equipment or materials which results in a meaningful change in the work, wages, hours, or working conditions of any classification of employees in the bargaining unit, or it diminishes the number of workers in any classification of employees in the bargaining unit. Now, during the term of this agreement, such changes shall not include the use of drones or driverless vehicles to transport, deliver, or pick up packages, platooning, or shifting. But in the event of the employer desires to implement any change described in this sentence, it shall be required to notify the union 6 months in advance of any such change, and it shall be required to bargain the effects of any such change. If no agreement is reached between the parties that matter, it shall be resolved under Article 8, which we'll get to that later. In a little bit. Now, the employer and the union agree to review any proposed technological challenges covered by the section as a part of this meeting. The parties shall discuss whether the proposed technological change violates any provisions of this agreement. Now, further, the employer will review any training required for bargaining unit employees to perform new or modified work generated as a result of the new technology, or to utilize the new technology as necessary. Now, the employer shall advise the union of any proposed technological changes when the change has entered the field testing phase, or at least 6 months prior to the implementation of such change, except where the change was later determined, in which case the employer shall provide as much notice as possible. In all cases, the company will provide notice of any technological change covered by this section before the technology is implemented. Um, the employer agrees that prior to any change, it shall notify the union in writing with the joint specifics, with the specific details, and the information that's then available, and they meet jointly with them to inform of the proposed changes, and to resolve questions raised in connection with the effects of the proposed change. Now, CM, I don't know if you're still on the chat. Tell me, what would you want to learn more about when it comes to the union handbook? Because there is a lot in here for this book. Um, the change is dictated by emergency conditions. The union shall not reasonably delay the scheduling. But you got 45 days prior to the meeting, and during this joint meeting, the employer and the union shall reduce to writing all agreed upon issues, and both parties shall sign the written document in acknowledgement of such agreement if they want changes in technology. The meeting shall be completed where practical at least 45 days prior to the implementation of the proposed change, and the change may be implemented until the 45 days notice is provided, and the meeting is completed unless the change is dictated by emergency conditions. The union should not reasonably delay the scheduling or completion of the requested meeting, and any unresolved issues which have reduced to writing shall also be resolved pursuant in Article 8, which we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, if any agreed technological change creates new work that replaces or enhances or modifies the bargaining unit employees shall perform that new or modified work. The employer shall provide bargaining unit employees with training required to utilize the new technology if necessary. I should look into getting an editor for editing videos. I haven't gotten to that point yet. And how to find one. I would like to work on editing my videos and editing certain parts up when it comes to it. Section 6, Article 5, hourly training. I'm an hourly employee, so basically they're supposed to train you when you come in. It's supposed to last like a week. Training at UPS lasts for about a week, and after about a week you're on your own. It is agreed that the Teamsters representative employees on a voluntary basis may train other employees, but UPS reserves the right to choose to use or not to use Teamster representative trainees to trainers to fulfill the training need. Now, if you are a trainer at UPS, you will get $1 extra training premium for each hour spent training. Drivers, training helpers, and two on the car rides for the purpose of route knowledge should not be entitled to the training premium. Now, trainer selection and assignments to the on-job training shall be done in accordance with this agreement. Now that's the end of Article 6. Article 6. Now we're going into Article 7, local and area agreements. Machinery. Except in cases involving cardinal infractions, as outlined in Article 54 of this agreement, an employee to be designated or suspended shall be allowed to remain on the job without loss of pay unless and until the discharge or suspension is sustained under the grievance procedure, which includes arbitration. Now the union agrees it shall not reasonably delay the processing of such cases. Section 7, Article 1, differences between the employer and the union as to the application or interpretations of any of the provisions of this agreement, including the question of whether an employee has been disciplined or discharged for such case, shall be settled by the following grievances and arbitration procedure. Now the employee shall discuss any issues or complaints with the supervisor, or the union steward or business agent shall discuss any issues or complaints within the appropriate supervisor or manager. Now, if the employee's issue or complaint is not resolved in step 1, the employer shall discuss the issue or complaints with their steward and the appropriate supervisor or manager. If the parties fail to agree on the dispute or the issue, the steward and are the designed business agent shall promptly be authorized to submit a written grievance to the employer with a copy. Yes, I have. I love that movie. That's the one with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Al Pacino. It was on Netflix. I've seen it. I have the book. It's a good movie, and it's well worth the 3.5 hours. Al Pacino did a pretty good role of playing Jimmy Hoffa. Now, if the party fails to agree on the dispute or the issue, the steward and or the assigned business agent shall promptly be authorized to submit a written grievance to the employer with a copy provided to and retained by the business agent within the 30 calendar days of the occurrence or knowledge of the occurrence. The grievances relating solely to discharge or discipline shall be filed within the 15 calendar days of the notice of discipline. Now, all warning notices are deemed to be automatically aggrieved and protested, and will not only be heard at the time of subsequent changes or discharge. Now, failure to follow the above grievance filing period, as outlined in paragraph 3 above, any result in the dismissal of the grievance. Now, unresolved grievances may be submitted to the UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee. The UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee shall consist of an equal number of members selected by the employer and the union. Now, failure to achieve a resolution resulting in a deadlock at the UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee may result in the grievance being submitted in arbitration by the union. Unless mutually agreed to otherwise, the parties agree to have the UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee hear and decide all docketed discipline cases, including discharge and suspension, prior to any contract interpretation grievances each month. As an impartial arbitrator, they shall sit as the fifth member of the union of the UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee, who shall hear all testimony and receive evidence with the UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee. The impartial arbitrator shall render a bunch decision only if and after the UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee deadlocks the discipline grievance. In selecting the fifth member of the UPS 705 Grievance Committee, the parties shall adhere to the following procedure. Within 14 days of ratification of this agreement, the parties shall jointly request from the Federal Mediation and Consolation of Service FMCS a panel consisting of 35 arbitrators selected from the FMCS's regional pool, who are members of the National Academy of Arbitration, who shall agree, if mutually selected by the parties, to be part of a permanent panel within 10 business days from receiving the panel of names from the FMCS. The parties shall alternately strike names until 7 arbitrators are left to perform the panel known as the Board of Arbitration. Now, the board for the term of this agreement, each member of the board shall alphabetically, by last name, be assigned a number from 1 to 7, and every month the arbitrator shall be assigned by rotation from the list of names. The first month's UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee being assigned the arbitrator designated number 1, and succeeding months assigned to the other arbitrations in numeral sequence. Now, if for any reason an arbitrator is unable to sit during this designated monthly UPS Local 705 Grievance Committee, then the parties shall attempt to agree on a replacement arbitrator. Now, if the parties are unable to agree, then the parties shall request from the FMCS a list of 7 names from which the employer and the union shall ultimately strike 3 different names, and the person whose name remains shall be designated as the replacement arbitrator for that month only. But when choosing a replacement arbitrator, either party may subject an FMCS panel in its entirety one time. Now, upon rejecting the panel, the party shall immediately request and pay for a new panel. Now, within 7 days from January 1st of each calendar year, either party may notify the other party of its intent to remove one arbitrator from the board. Now, the party seeking to replace an arbitrator shall request from the FMCS a list of seven names from which the employer and the union shall alternately strike three different names, and the person whose name remains shall be designated as that replacement arbitrator. Now, when choosing a replacement arbitrator for the board, either party may reject an FMCS panel in its entirety one time. Now, upon rejecting the panel, the party shall immediately request and pay for a new panel. Now, the replacement arbitrator shall assume the numerical order of the arbitrator who was removed. Now, an arbitrator may also be removed from the permanent panel at any time upon the mutual written agreement of the parties. Now, getting back to CM's question about seeing the Irishman, yes, I have. If they ever had it on DVD, I would go buy it. I have not seen it on DVD, but if they ever put the Irishman movie on DVD, I would go out and buy that any day. It's well worth the 3.5-hour watch. Upon notice of removal of an arbitrator from the board, the parties shall attempt to agree upon a replacement arbitrator. If the parties are unable to agree, then the selection of a replacement shall be in accordance with the above paragraph, and the replacement arbitrator shall assume the numerical order of the arbitrator who is removed. Now, for the purpose of this subsection 7 only, the fees and expense of the arbitrator shall be borne equally by the parties, and now any back pay remedy ordered shall be paid by the employer within 10 days of any decision. No attorney shall be allowed at the UPS Local 75 Grievance Committee, and all UPS Local 75 Grievance Committees shall take place at the Local 75 office. Now, the union shall have up to 60 calendar days to notify the company by letter or other mutually agreeable means of its intent to arbitrate any contract interpretation agreements deadlocked by the UPS Local 75 Grievance Committee. On any deadlocked contract interpretation grievances to which the union has provided timely notice of its intent to arbitrate, the company and the union shall select from a list of 7 arbitrators who are members of the National Academy of Arbitrators. Now, the list shall be furnished by the Federal Mediation and Consolation Service at the union's request, from which the employer and the union shall each alternately strike 3 names, and the person whose name remains shall be designated as the arbitrator. Now, when choosing an arbitrator, either party may reject a panel in its entirety one time. Upon rejecting the panel, the party shall immediately request any and pay for a new panel. Now, the parties shall strike arbitrators within 30 calendar days from the date that the parties received the initial FMCS list as extension and is mutually agreeable. Now, if either party exercises its right to reject the list of arbitrators in its entirety, then the party that rejected the FMCS list has 72 hours to order a new FMCS list. Now, once the new FMCS list is received by the parties will have 15 calendar days to strike arbitrators. In the event an arbitrator has set to be removed by mutual agreement from the initial FMCS list, the original 30 days time frame is not told. Now, the fees and expenses of the arbitration and contract in the contract arbitration case shall be borne by the loser. Attorneys shall be allowed to present contract interpretation cases at arbitration, and all such arbitrations shall take place at a mutually acceptable location. Now, all decisions of the UPS Local 75 Grievance Committee and our arbitrator shall be final, and no strike or lockout shall occur except as in hereafter provided. Nothing herein shall authorize the arbitrator to alter the terms and conditions of the agreement to make a new one. Now, upon failure of the employer to meet with the union to adjust agreements when requested to do so, or to appoint members of the grievance committee, or to strike names on the list of failure to comply with any final decision, the principal officer of or their designee in the company's and the company regional labor relations manager or their designee shall meet within 72 hours and to attempt to resolve this dispute. Um, Failing to agree, the union is at its discretion shall be permitted all legal and economic recourse, including the right to strike and support or endorsement of its demands, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in this agreement. Now, the action taken by the union in recourse or enforcement of its right should not be arbitrable proceeding on behalf nor reviewable by any tribunal. The agreements and arbitration proceedings on behalf um, of an employee respecting their grievance may be invoked by the union when in their opinion they deem it to be justifiable. Section 7, Article 2. Should a certified public accountant designated by the union certify in writing specifically that the employer is violating the wage scale, hours of work, vacations, applicable health and welfare provisions or pension provisions, or working conditions and other terms or conditions of employment based on the payroll records, time cards, and or sheets audited by them, or if employee refuses to produce such records for audit as provided in this agreement, then the agreement's procedure shall have no application to such facts and circumstances, and the union shall be permitted all legal and economic recourse, including the right to strike, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in this agreement. Now, UPS has a 401k and a pension. You're entitled. Both of them are like your retirement thing. The only difference with now the pension plan, the money just builds up over time. It starts right away when you get hired in, and the longer you stay with the company, the better your pension becomes. With the 401k, they take out a certain amount of money out of your paycheck every week. Only problem is UPS does not contribute any contribution to your 401k, so it's just your money that you're putting in. They don't contribute anything to it, which I think is bull crap. Now the legal recourse reserved to the union in this agreement shall be cumulative with and not exclusive of any other remedy, economic or legal, available to it. The union may, in addition to pursuing other remedies, sue the employer in the union's own behalf or in behalf of any aggrieved employee. The specific performance of this agreement, injunctive relief, recovery of dues, wages, vacations, or other benefits, or any other legal redress, and the employer hereby expressed waives the right to object to the union being party plaintiff in such an action. Now, in pursuing the aforesaid legal remedies, the union shall have the right to recover all reasonable costs and attorney fees. All monetary grievance settlements shall be submitted by separate check payable to the grievant or grievances, and a copy of the same sent to the union for their records. Such settlements shall be paid within 10 working days of settlement. Now we are at Article 8. I did mention that we would get to that. Expedited arbitration. Anytime this agreement specifically allows for expedited arbitration of an issue, either party shall provide written notice of its intent to submit the matter to the expedited arbitration. Unless the parties mutually agree to otherwise, the matter shall proceed immediately to expedited arbitration. The party providing notice shall immediately request a list of 11 names from the Federal Mediation and Consolation Service (FMCS), who are members of the National Academy of Arbitrators, from which list the employers and the union each alternately strike 3 to 5 names, and the person whose name remains shall be designated as the arbitrator. Unless mutually agreeable to otherwise, the expedited arbitration shall occur within 30 days of the arbitrator selection, and it should be an arbitrator and should an arbitrator be unable to hear the matter within 30 days of the arbitrator selection, each party shall have the right to request from FMCS a new list of 11 names, from which the employer and the union shall select an arbitrator in accordance with the procedure set forth in this paragraph until the parties are able to obtain an arbitrator who shall commit to hearing the case within 30 days. The cost of any subsequent list that may be necessary in order to secure an arbitrator shall hear the case within 30 days shall be borne equally by the parties, unless mutually agreed to otherwise upon 7 days of receipt of the transcript from the court reporter. Either party may submit a brief a brief to the arbitrator. Now the arbitrator shall be required to render a decision within 10 days of receipt of briefs, and the fees and the expenses of the expedited arbitration should be borne by the loser. Article 9, Protection of Rights. Section 9, Article 1, Picket Line. It should not be a violation of this agreement, and it should not be cause for discharge or disciplinary action, including but not limited to the temporary or permanent replacement of any employee. In the event that an employee refuses to enter upon any property involved in a primary labor dispute, or they refuse to go through or work behind any primary picket line, including the primary picket line of the union party to this agreement, and including primary picket lines in the employee and the employer's place of business, and the employer shall not direct any employee to cross a primary picket line. Section 9, Article 2, Sex Struck Goods. It should not be in violation of this agreement, and it should not be a cause for discharge or disciplinary action if an employee refuses to perform any service which their employer undertakes to perform as an ally of an employer or person whose employers are on strike, and which service, but for strikes, would be performed by the employees of the employer or a person on strike. UPS does have strikes. They do have every year, every certain amount of time, every year they have an employer that does a strike. And UPS, they had some of them earlier on in the year when I was working there. Going back from last year. Section 9, Article 3, subject to the appropriate subcontract handling, using any other products of any other employer, or cease doing business with any other person, or fail in any obligation imposed by the Motor Carriers Act or other applicable law, as a result of individual employees exercising their rights under this agreement or under law, but the employer shall, notwithstanding any other provisions in this agreement, when necessary, continue doing such business by other employers. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. That's better. Article 4. The layover provisions of this attaches a road driver to a terminal at this procedure, or after proper notification of a picket line permitted by the collective bargaining agreement, or extracts occurring after expiration of a collective bargaining agreement, or to achieve a collective bargaining agreement. Section 9, Article 5 covers grievances, which we've talked about. Within 5 working days of filing a grievance claiming violations of this article, now the grievance shall be submitted directly to the UPS Local 75 Grievance Committee without taking any intermediate steps, and any other provisions of this agreement to the contrary notwithstanding. Now that's the end of articles. That's the end of Section 9, Article 5. Now we're going to Article 10, loss or damage. Section 10, Article 1. No employee shall make any reimbursement or have any monies deducted from their pay for a loss or damage to parcels except provided in this section. No employee shall be disciplined or required to make reimbursement for loss or damaged parcels unless the employer demonstrates that the employee, without justification or mitigation, violated established rules or policies, and the observance of which would have prevented a loss or damage. In no event shall a driver be subjected to reimbursement for loss or damage to a driver release parcel valued at $100 or less. Who is charged for loss or damage by the employer shall not be subjected to both discipline and reimbursement. Now the employer shall clearly notify the employee and the union of its intent to either discipline, seek reimbursement. Now, no employee shall be subjected to discipline or reimbursement unless the employer brings the loss or damage to the employer's attention within 15 business days after receiving a written shipper notice of the claim. Now, when an employee is subject to discipline, the employer shall not make any reimbursement for such loss or damage. When the employer is subject to reimbursement, the employer shall not be subject to discipline for such loss or damage. Um, any employee who is found to be responsible for 2 reimbursements in a 12-month period, they may receive a warning letter in addition to being responsible for reimbursements, and should a third loss occur in the same 12-month period. Um, no action shall be taken by the employer under this section until the grievance procedure is invoked and concluded. Now, in such grievance hearings, the employer shall present its case first. Now, if an employee is held liable for reimbursement for loss or damage under Article 10, Section 1, in regard to any package, they should be held liable for the value of the package, the amount paid by the employer to the customer, or the insured value of the package, whichever is least. Reimbursement scheduling shall be reasonable and fair, and it's based upon the circumstances of each case. Excuse me. Now, this article is not to be construed as permitting changes for loss or damage to equipment, or charging basically charges for loss or damage to equipment. Nor is this article to be construed as permitting charges for any loss or damage to merchandise as a result of a particular accident under any circumstance. Now, even though this is a new year, I'm hoping that my channel has a better year this year. Back in 2023, I can look this up. Back in 2023, I had gotten 24. Hold on. Oh crap. I think in 2024 I had gotten 2023 I had gotten over 23,000 or 24,000 views. Last year, my views were 15,437, which is 9,000 less. So I'm hoping that this year will be a lot better with the views, and everything. So far, just in 4 days of January, my videos have gotten 128 views, which is not bad, but that's a start. Basically, I gotta have at least 500 or more subscribers to be able to monetize my channel. We're sitting at 455 right now. It was 456, somehow one dropped off. But I'm hoping to do more live stream videos. Some people would like to jump in on those. Now, on Section 10, Article 2, employees handling money shall account for and remit the same to the employer at the completion of each day's work. An employee's cash turn-in may be verified or audited by the employer. Now, if the employer fails to verify and deposit an employee's cash in when requested, no deduction or disciplinary action shall be taken upon request by the union. There's only a couple places at UPS that handle cash transactions. That would be the security office and the cafe. UPS has their own cafeteria where you can go buy food. They basically handle cash or card there. Same thing with the security office. You could do cash or card. But if you lose your ID, something like that, you can pay for it with cash or card. Now, the employer and the union shall meet to review any problems relating to transportation of cash via the feeders or cashier's check rules. To ensure that the employee shall not be held accountable when the employer verifies and deposits or fails to verify and or deposit the employee's cash turn-in, the employee and employer shall sign a document to be maintained by the employer showing whether the employee requested verification and deposit, and whether the employee employee's cash turn-in has either been verified or deposited or not verified and or deposited. In cases of this, a proven bona fide error, in addition to subtraction or the cash in of the cash turn-in, the employer shall be responsible for making proper restitution for such shortage. Now, in such cases of bona fide error, the employer and an employee, with the participation of the union and where permitted by applicable law, shall execute a written document providing for an agreed upon amount and schedule of reimbursement and or deduction. A copy of any such agreement shall be provided to the union. The employer shall incorporate into the DIAD for package shipping using WordShip and MaxiShip, as well as other shipping systems when it is technologically feasible. A function that shall prompt the driver when a specific type of fund is to be collected from each COD delivery, e.g., certified funds, cashier's check, money order, that prompts, or as the system is expanded, if the driver collects an improper check, um, the employer shall inform the driver of that acceptance. Um, Now, the employer shall make a reasonable effort to collect for losses due to bad checks, and to include a driver follow-up and attempts by the manager or their designee to meet with the co-signee, and a letter to the co-signee requesting payment when appropriate, should a driver who has been liable for restitution choose to pursue legal recourse against the co-signee. The employer shall provide any necessary documents to aid the driver in processing a claim throughout the courts. The employer shall not be held liable for restitution or disciplined if they accepted a regular check if a reasonable person would have accepted that check. No employee shall be subjected to restitution or discipline unless the employer brings the bad check to the employee's attention within 15 days. After receiving a written ship or notice of claim, no action shall be taken by the employer under this section until the grievance procedure is invoked and concluded in such grievance hearings. Now, the employer shall present its case first. Reimbursement schedules shall be reasonable and fair based upon the circumstances of each case. Section 10, Article 3. The employer shall reimburse employees for loss of personal money or personal property in a hold-up or vehicular accident while on duty, up to a maximum of $300 per employee, provided the employee promptly reports of $300 per employee, and provided that the employee promptly reports such hold-up or a vehicular accident to the employer and the police, and they cooperate in the investigation of such hold-up or vehicular accident. The employee shall be paid for all time involved. However, reimbursement for cash loss shall be limited to $100. In addition, if the employees experience theft or vandalism, issues related to personal vehicles and designated employee parking lots, the union may notify the district labor manager of the issues and request a meeting with security to discuss specific concerns as the affected parking lot. In addition, of an employee whose personal vehicle was subject to theft or vandalism while parked in the designated parking company in the company parking lot, provides immediate notice to the company and obtains a police report, the company will reimburse the employer or employee up to $500 to the extent that the theft or vandalism is not covered by the employee's insurance. Okay, now we're going into Article 11. I don't know if you guys want me to keep going or not. I said this would be a long video if I was to read the whole thing. Now, also with UPS, you're not allowed to wear any type of work shoes. They got to be steel-toed boots or just regular boots. You cannot wear gym shoes or tennis shoes to UPS where you're loading and unloading. If you show up to UPS and you're wearing tennis shoes or steel-toed, or you're wearing like tennis shoes or gym shoes, they won't let you work. Now, Article 11, weekend work schedules. UPS does allow you to work weekends only at certain times. Effective upon ratification previously classified, Article 22, 4B, drivers shall be reclassified to regular package car drivers. Placed in and they will be placed in a seniority according to the language to the local 75 UPS agreement, and have their pay rate adjusted to top rates or applicable. Article 41, Section 2B, to the progressive rates effective August 1st of 2023. Further, they will be covered by Article 37, 9.5 provisions and the 8-hour request, as well as other rights and benefits as an RPCD. The parties agree in those buildings where the employer is currently utilizing or elects to utilize in the future. A 6-day package delivery operation following will apply. Now, Section 1, process of reclassifying. The RPCD work weeks shall be Monday through Friday or Tuesday through Saturday. These two work week schedules will be staffed in accordance with the supplemental language, except as follows. Drivers hired as a RPCD before August 1st, 2019 should not be forced to a Tuesday through Saturday work week, but shall be allowed to bid such work week according to the local 705 UPS the local 705 UPS agreement. Now, drivers hired as RPCD drivers after August 1st, 2019, may bid on either a Monday through Friday shift or a Tuesday through Saturday work week, and it may be determined by the local 705 UPS agreement. Previously classified Article 22.4, drivers shall remain on a TS work week unless the number of necessary Tuesday through Saturday work week schedules can be covered by RPCD drivers described in paragraph 1 or 2 above. Now, if the number of Tuesday to Saturday work week schedules cannot be covered by the drivers in paragraphs 2 or 3, the company may assign the open Tuesday to Saturday work week schedules to the junior RPCD drivers, and stuff like that, hired after August 1st, 2019, according to the local 705 UPS agreement. Now, in any buildings without sufficient staffing to handle Saturday delivery needs after the process set forth above, the local union and the company shall meet and resolve. If not resolved within 60 days of ratification, the matter may be referred to the co-chairs of the Teamsters UPS National Negotiating Committee or their designees for a resolution. No RPCD shall be forced to work forced to work any day outside of their regular scheduled work week. Now, the RPCDs who currently qualify for 9-to-5 rights shall not have their rights affected due to the reclassification of the 22.4. Section 2, recognizing that the employer currently only utilizes 5-day delivery operations in some locations. At least 45 days advance written notice shall be provided to local 705 prior to transitioning to a 6-day delivery operation following the ratification. The parties will follow the MOU, negotiation at the NM main table to establish a schedule and the methodology to implement this provision. Now, we do have time clocks and polygraph. No applicant for employment and no employee shall be required to take any form of a lie detector test as a condition of employment. Now, upon request, an employer or the union may inspect the record of an employee's time recorded on the DIAD or other device for previous day's work. An employee shall be permitted to examine the operation record for the current pay period for the purpose of asserting their hours worked. If an employee has an issue with their hours worked for a particular day, the employer shall provide the employee, upon written request, with a printout of the hours that they worked. The employer agrees to provide forms for the employee to record their starting and ending times. Now, by January 1st of 2026, the employer shall implement an employee accessible payroll system that provides access to start and finish times, pay codes, pay amounts, and scheduled time off. This system will also provide the system, date, and the nature of any alterations made by any member of management. The information in the system shall be updated on at least a daily basis. When requested by the union, when requested by the union, time clocks should be left in place for employees to record their work hours for their own personal use. Now, Article 13. Passengers. Now, no driver shall allow anyone other than employee and the employer who are on duty to ride on their truck except by written authorization of the employee. Now, usually with drivers, they get helpers during the peak season. You can become a driver helper, like basically where you help the driver deliver packages, and stuff like that. So basically, getting back to that, no driver shall allow anyone other than employees of the employer or who are on duty to ride on their truck except by written authorization of the employer, except in cases of emergency arising out of disabled commercial equipment, accident, or any act of God in accordance with Department Transportation renegotiations. I guess that'll be enough for today. For the book. Um, so next time I come back to do a live video, we will pick up on Article 14 and go from there. So today I've read 1 through 14. But here's to hoping that my YouTube channel does better this year with subscribers and views. Hopefully it would do better than what it did last year. Last year I don't remember how many subscribers I picked up, but I'm sitting at 455 right now. Usually this tells you when your subscribers come in. Let's go to this for a minute. I'm going to check to make sure how many subscribers I got in the last year. Okay, they want me to go to the YouTube studio, which I'm already in, which doesn't make sense to me. Okay, let's go to dashboard. In the last month, I picked up 6 subscribers, which isn't bad. That's better than nothing. But like I said, we're going to try to get this channel going. I'm going to probably start doing more live streams instead of doing individual. But I'm still going to do my little small individual videos that are like 5 to 10 minutes. But I'm also going to incorporate live stream videos in. This thing also tells me our recent subscribers. My last subscriber was December 16th of 2024. A guy named Christopher. Then before him was a guy named Chris from New York on November 1st. A guy named Frogverve on November 9th. Slim Pickens. Like I said, we're hoping to get the YouTube channel to take off, getting more subscribers, getting more views. Also, I have 2 YouTube channels. They're both centered on 2 different things. This is centered more on UPS. I have another channel called Rusty the King, where I do review videos. I go out and review places. Also, because I moved to a new town called Willow Springs, which is in Illinois, it's a more nicer and fancier area. I've been basically going around looking at places, like seeing what's around, stores, shops, stuff like that. I did find a new restaurant in the area that if you're ever in Willow Springs, I suggest you check it out. The restaurant is called Willow Springs Family Restaurant. It's not like a big restaurant; it's kind of small, but they got good food. They're only open from 7 to 3. I've been there. I'm becoming a regular there. I've been there 5 times already since I moved out here, so I'm becoming almost a regular there. Another one is Ashbury Coffee House. Mainly there, you can get like pies there, drinks there, like coffee. You can get like hot coffee, cold coffee, similar to Starbucks, but their prices are kind of that same. But I suggest you check out those 2 places if you're ever in Willow Springs. I've been doing a lot of nature walks. So nature walks are kind of like my thing. I like walking through the woods. Just be careful when you're walking around in the woods, because you can see deer there, and stuff like that. But in the time that I've been here, I bought my own computer because I was going to need one, and one of the roommates gave me a mouse to use. It's a Camaro mouse, which I think was pretty cool that he gave me that to use to operate my computer. And also on my computer, I can check my analytics for everything. Oh, sorry about that. So these are my analytics here. Dashboard. So here, when you go to your one channel, so in the last month, my channel got 1,894 views. That's in the last 28 days. 2024, my channel got 15,437 views. That was going from last year. Now this is January of 2025. Now my videos this year got 128 views. I have not picked up a subscriber yet for this year, but we're hoping to get that going. Now, and now that's just going to say the same thing, where it says for the year, 128 views. And then lifetime views would be right here. We have just surpassed the 110,000 view mark, which is not bad. Now you can also check your views in the last 7 days. Last 7 days, my in the last week, my channel got 425 views. And then you go 90 days, that's a little over 3 months, 4,407 views in the last 3 months. Now in the whole year, 15,471, which is going from what it was last year. It's going to take time to update. Now this thing updates like every certain amount of every 3 to 4 days. So in about the next 4 days, my views will be looking at about 200 views, and that does not include this video. So if you liked the live stream, make sure to smash the like and subscribe button. You can leave a like. You can leave a like and comment. Let me know what you guys were thinking on this video. If you want to support me, you can also make sure to smash that like and subscribe button for more videos like this. I'm going to try to do as much live stream videos as I can to gain an audience. Also, if you want to support the work even further, I have a Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as a few bucks a video, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening. And we're going to end this right here.